So Rick wants the special sauce on his hot dog.
All right, guys. So this is honestly going to be one of my favorite episodes. I love this dude that's sitting next to me. We've actually, everybody's been crying about the rules of no prep. So this episode's actually to release that you're coming over to no prep. You're going to fix the whole thing.
Really? We're going to fix it?
You're going to fix
We're going to fix
everything.
no prep.
You're going to fix the whole thing.
So what we have to do is we have to start off first with the way I've watched some of those guys eat hot dogs. It's always hot dog to mouth, not mouth to hot dog. So we'll start there,
and then we'll work our way down.
And then we'll work our way. We'll work our way to the rest of the stuff that needs to be addressed.
That's
like
a big thing to
short
fix.
pants, tennis shoes, tennis jackets, and their dad's World War II helmet that they're wearing for safety and protection.
That's fair. That is fair. So if you don't know who this is John Sears. Man, I really appreciate you.
Nah, no problem. Glad to be here.
Really appreciate this man. So he, I mean, the godfather of X275.
Yep.
If you,
my unruly baby.
Yeah. You made, because of you, I wanted to build race cars.
Wow, I was saying something. I'm
No,
humbled.
I didn't like, my dad was an NHRA guy, and I didn't really relate to that. And then I started watching YouTube videos of X275 cars, and I thought it was literally the coolest thing in the world. Like the unruly small tire car that may or may not make it down. And, back then it was kind of Wild Wild West.
No, it was insane, right?
Yeah.
Like before it got sanitized and corporate, right? It was wheel stands and knocking the tires off and guys going sideways through the lights. And, it was one step this side of a shit show, basically.
Yeah.
And it really caught the eye of a lot of people. I look at it now as it's morphed and it's changed. And again, as it's gotten corporate and everything else like that. And it's sanitized and it's not what it used to be, but it is still one of the most competitive radial tire classes out there. I don't think anybody can take that away from the class, nor its competitors. And due to great sponsorship and opportunities, man, the class is still a viable deal out there.
Well, when Brad and I started, we wanted to build X275 cars. That's what we wanted to do. And people told us we were insane because we had never even put together a car.
Right.
And
now look at you.
we got a few of them in the field.
One or two.
Yeah. Which is really humbling, man. It's really, really humbling. But yeah, I just wanted to publicly say thank you because you've helped us make a living, man.
Yeah,
you have.
That's what it's all about, is growing the sport, right?
Yeah.
One of my biggest things is, as somebody that's been in it as long as I had, always trying to look for the youth and bring up the younger guys that have the passion for it and everything else like that. And you're very humble in the Tin Soldiers car deal with X275 and all the other classes that you guys build cars for. All your cars are competitive. All your cars are up front. So that's something to hang your hat on. And as a young dude in the industry, man, I can't say enough about how good I feel that we're going to be able to pass the torch off to you in a couple of years when we decide to call it quits and or slow down.
Yeah. No, thank you. That's a compliment, man. Thank you. So, well, okay, to kind of kick it back, obviously you race yourself. You have a nitrous car, which is the Lord's power adder, by the way.
It is. Jesus Christ himself came on this earth and developed nitrous. His whole thing was he didn't like the plate deal, and Fogger was going to be it, and that's what we use.
Yeah, that's right. So you also have a G body.
We do. We do G-body or no body.
Yeah,
right?
we're G-body brothers. Yeah, he's a really nice car, and you don't get to race it much because you're helping everybody else go racing.
Right.
But so if we turn back the wheels of time, what got you into drag racing to begin with? What started it for you?
I would have to say it was just like a morphing thing, much like yourself. I raced BMX, I raced dirt bikes, and as I got to be an older teenager and had my own cars, performance was just the thing that I wanted to be involved with. And there was a guy down the street that had a GTO and a Chevy 2 and a LS6 4-speed Chevelle. and looking at what that guy was doing and what he had and how cool that shit was when he'd do a burnout in front of my house just to mess with me. It was awesome. And I would go down and I would, you know, cut his grass or whatever, or just hang out, you know, just to see what he's working on and doing. And I kind of got the bug from that. And it just really escalated when you look at the mid 90s and stuff like that, when the fastest street car shootout stuff came out, right? That whole thing, that whole genre of racing is why we're here today. And the guys that developed that at Hot Rod Magazine and all the other ancillary stuff that has come out, the NMCA, NSCA, all those different
it really stemmed from there.
Right. That's because they were true muscle cars, right? And as a kid of the 70s, you know, I saw some of that shit new on the
you remember
on the showroom,
out.
You know, or even as a kid watching something like that drive by in your neighborhood. It's just natural, right?
Yeah.
Just gravitated towards that.
That's cool. Let me fix your mic a little bit for you. I still think you're banana.
It looks a little awkward, right?
Yeah, you're still banana a little bit.
Yeah. I'm gonna bring the mic to me, not me to the
mic. So you go through that area of time, and then how did X275? Great name, by the way. Really good branding.
Right.
You probably didn't know that at the time. You just
we kind of went out of our way to sort of give it its own identity and get it away from Outlaw Drag Radio. That was the big king of the hill at the time, and they were still running quarter mile, right?
Oh, okay,
So as a nitrous small block guy, you're ass out trying to race against
That's
big
a bad
block
deal.
twin turbo car, right?
Yeah.
Right. You're at 800 feet and you're watching that guy's time flash up on the board.
Yeah.
You know, unless you're Ron Rhodes.
Yeah.
Right. Unless you're Ron Rhodes, it's not gonna. You're not gonna be that guy.
Yeah.
So looking at that and looking at some of the 8th mile stuff that we did in Florida with Florida Real Street and the 650 Pure Street stuff that we were doing, we were like, man, 8th mile's the way to go. PSCA out west had their Wild Street on the 275 tire. NMCA had Factory Street, 275 tire. And I was like, man, that's the tire of choice. Everybody can fit that pretty much under their car without too many modifications. So I was like, man, we got to do something like that. And I was like, let me talk to a couple of people and see what we can get going. And the actual first set of rules, we wrote with Nate Pritchett, Jason Miller, a good buddy of mine, Randy Van Raden, and myself sat down in a Pizza Hut and wrote those rules down by scratch.
You don't see Pizza Huts much anymore.
No, not too much, right? So, and we've always had the 88 millimeter as like sort of the pinnacle and of the class. Yeah. And so once we developed that, I was like, shit, we got to come up with a cool name, you know, and somebody's like Extreme 275. We're like, we'll just shorten it to X275. Now when you say I've got an X car, people know exactly what you have, right? Yeah. Like, and
every car for sale on Turbo Bullet with mincers on it is an X275.
That's an X275 car, right? That's a great selling point. So when you look at that whole thing, we developed the logo, the skull. It has a little bit of an attitude, right? And then the whole X part of our X275, that's like a gang tag, right? It's like somebody ran by your house with a paintbrush and put that on there and they tagged your house. And that's kind of what we wanted to be. We wanted to be a little roguish, a little rough, a little in your face. Some of our early videos, you know, you can see the stuff that my son shot, Matt. And he's a big part of this as well because his video is what sold Jason Miller on giving us the opportunity at Budds Creek with X275.
That's cool, man. I didn't know that.
Kinda it. Yep.
That's really cool. What were you promoting drag races before you did X or okay. Yep. Well, how long ago did you start promoting races?
So early on in the drag radio scene, we were always trying to get drag radio at Orlando, the World Street Nationals. Yeah. And there was one year that Carl Weisinger was like, let's try to do something. So Dwayne Guthridge, Troy Perez, Chris Little, all those guys that have been around, since the beginning of this stuff, we were just contacting everybody we knew that had a radial style car to come to the event. And I was going on the NMRA boards, just talking mad trash to those guys over there.
To try to motivate them.
Right, to motivate them. There was also a BFG message board, old school HTML style message board. It was a complete shit show over there, but it was awesome. Everybody's talking trash. We would get up on Heads Up Review, which was one of the other ones that we would get on there. And we would try to motivate people and get people going. And Carl bought off on it and allowed, radial tires to start going there. They had already had their stuff over at NMRA and the NMCA, but we wanted to sort of do an outlaw style thing right there.
Yeah.
And so I played a little part in, you know, trying to motivate people and getting stuff like that done. And then that moved into me going to Immokalee Dragway in Florida, and working with those guys on our stock suspension class, which that wound up getting pretty fast. So then we brought in the 650 Pure Street, which was on a radial, no delay boxes, no bullshit like that. But you had to be on a radial, and it could be a bracket car, it had to be street appearing deal. And then we eventually took that and made another move, and we did Florida Real Street, which Charlie up in Ohio grabbed those rules and developed his limited 235 deal, which is now back under my purview. Yep. And we have morphed DXP Street and limited 235 into what's now called Limited Street,
which was a great move.
Right. We had hoped that it was going to be what we wanted it to be, right? Yeah. Which was going to be able to grow an entry level heads up small tire deal.
Yeah.
And we've expanded the tire sizes to include the 26 8.5 Pro bracket, the 255 R tire, and the 275 SS tire that the guys carried over from DXP Street.
Which was a great, so that's a great kind of segue. Like right now, you know, obviously we cut our teeth in the radial stuff. We've been messing with the no prep stuff, but that there is a huge resurgence of people that want rules and no prep, right? Like it's going through the same transitions of everything you just talked about. Like, you know, you limited it to 8th mile because the nitro small block couldn't run, because that's the first combo that gets kicked out.
Absolutely.
And then it naturally progresses. But the thing that if you're watching this deal and you never even looked into drag radiator racing, you automatically think it's expensive. It's not true. There's way more money in this 4-door thing than what we had in our 235 car that we did really well with.
Right.
The 235 class, now limited, is a fantastic. Did I say fantastic?
Yeah.
Because it is a fantastic.
I would agree wholeheartedly with you.
Stepstone to get into, you know, drag racing, have a rule set that you can build to. You know, the class has been around for a while. Like what I see as someone that sells car parts is, you know, your average guy, it takes a while to put one of these things together.
Right.
Well, by the time they get it together, the class has changed, whatever. Well, the basic rule set of a 235 or Ultrastreet or whatever, I mean, it's been the same for a long time.
Right.
Like those, you know, there's different power adder changes and stuff. I get that. But, you know, if you're building a turbo car, maybe you have to change the turbo when it's done. But the reality is it's a pretty close rule set.
Right.
That gives that guy a goal to build to, which is a beautiful thing.
Right. And they have to have that goal, right? They have to set themselves a goal, and they have to look at what's attainable for them, right?
Yeah.
And their financial resources and things of that nature there. So I think with the limited deal, we've really gone out of our way not to change rules, not to cost racers money. Sometimes some people get to the point where, you know, we have to express to them either through rules changes or verbally, you might want to think about moving up, right? This is not the class for you. And that hasn't been done in the past, right? Like,
no, and you did a great job of that.
Right. We tried to, everything that I learned and or messed up in X275, I've tried to correct in Ultrastreet and make sure that Ultrastreet stays whole and everything else like that. Because it's a constant learning process, and it's a constant give and take and everything between sponsors, racers, resources, everything else like that. And everything that we've learned and or done wrong, because there's been multiple mistakes made. I'm not infallible. I'm a human being. I've made more mistakes than I've done right things probably along the way.
Sometimes I think you're the most hated person.
Right,
it's crazy.
But sometimes when you get to that lower echelon class, right? The turbo that's available as the spec turbo for the class is very affordable for the average guy.
Yeah, that turbo, I think your class legal turbo, which we ran, was like $1,800.
Right.
Like it, you know, and our motor was a stock block deal. Like, yeah, I think the first year that we ran, we just actually, if you want to go back and watch, just did a motivational Monday on the motor that we ran. You know, it was a stock, it was $5,000 engine.
Right.
You know, and we finished 4th that year.
Right.
I mean, you can't say that about a lot of classes.
Nope.
And I think you have done a great job of like leaning into people like, hey man, I get it, but it's probably time for you to, you're right.
Right.
And you do a great job of that.
Well, we look at it as a balancing act, right? Sometimes you have to upset one person in order to keep the other 20 to 25 people happy and racing and, as part of the whole shooting match, right?
Yeah.
Literally, you can't have a race without racers.
Yeah.
Right? As much as we love sponsors and racetracks and, we go to SG&P a couple times a year with Donald's events and stuff like that. We go to Shady Side, we go to all these different tracks. Victor down in Bradenton, we go to Orlando, we go to Alabama, and stuff like that. You can't race without racetracks. You can't race without racers. You can't race without sponsors, and you can't race without racers. Our spectators, I should say, right? So it's a symbiotic relationship between all of us. And when racers and team owners and tuners and sponsors and promoters and managers and track owners all work together towards that common goal, good things happen. If egos get in the way, or if somebody gets butthurt over something like that, and then goes online and starts to tear things down, in front of the masses, well, that first story that gets told by that individual, as disgruntled as they may be, as much damage control as you can try to do on the backside, it's never going to usurp what that individual has said, because people saw that first.
Well, and I think, honestly, if people could better understand that they're throwing rocks at their own house,
right?
That, man, that's probably a great thing in anything in life.
Oh, yeah.
All right. But
absolutely.
But yeah, especially like I love what you said about everybody has to work together, because one can't exist without the other. And when we think that it can, we're in a bad shape.
Absolutely.
We're in real bad shape.
Absolutely.
And I've watched,
you've driven a car on a flat tire before, right?
Yeah.
Right. So if you look at each corner of the car as each corner of what we've got as far as racetracks and racers and spectators and sponsors, if one of those tires goes flat, we're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
We're not going anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an internal balancing act. It
is.
And I think, man, and I'm not just saying this because I would say this without you sitting here. I would say it to anybody. Because I've had people come up and complain to me about whatever. And I'm like, man, I think he does a fair job, and he may miss it. Right. You do. You miss, you say that.
Well,
and
I'll freely admit it.
Yeah. But there's a lot of, I think, Brad and I have promoted, we just stepped away from it a bit, but we promoted our own little race series at our home track. And
was that Cincy Street Nights, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
And I think every racer should have to do that.
Oh, at least once.
Yeah.
Maybe twice.
Yeah.
With some significant skin in the game, just so they feel it.
Yeah. Because it will, I'll tell you this, man, when they call a class to the lanes, we're like the first people up there.
Right.
Because we know, like, it's one less thing for that guy or that girl, or whoever's doing it, to worry about. Like, that car is sitting right here. Because you don't want to send, because people that are stubborn are like, we'll just send them, they're not here, just send the cars down.
Right.
Well, then that's not good for the fans.
No.
Like, we want to do everything we can do to send pairs of cars down the racetrack.
It is a race.
That's why they paid to be here.
Right. Right. That side-by-side thing's important.
Yeah. That's kind of what we do.
Right. Absolutely.
So through your years of doing this, and just tip my hat for you staying with it. Because I'm sure I'm sure there's been times when
I question my sanity almost on an hourly basis at some points. Sometimes it stretches to maybe the day, right?
Yeah.
Or a couple of days. But more often than not, I'm just questioning my sanity as to why I continue to do what I do. But I have passion and I love the sport. And, I love most of the people, right? Right? Don't hate anybody. That's an awful strong word, right?
Yeah.
But there are some people that I have no love for, if you want to put it that way. But I also have to look at a lot of the opportunities that have come my way, right? Like the opportunity at PDRA after I retired from my federal position.
Yeah.
And then that morphed into working for Drag Illustrated, West Buck, and the whole World Series of Pro Mod deal. That allowed us to look at a rule set in a group setting, and also, with what I do as far as balancing combinations and everything else like that. It's a little simpler in Pro Mod because the combinations aren't quite so diverse and spread out, right?
Yeah.
Like you're looking at, you know, basically a centrifugal, a roots, a screw, and a nitrous combo, right? You've got, and everybody has the best of the best.
Yeah,
so there's nobody worried about a candid valve head over an inline valve head and weight breaks.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. So I'm going to say it's simpler, but there's far more at stake. And what we accomplished there at World Series of Pro Mod, I think Brett Kepner said it was probably the closest heads-up eliminator in Pro Mod history.
Oh, it was really
with
good
32
racing.
cars at .056.
Yeah.
So we're getting ready to go into a meeting here later this afternoon, and we're going to discuss World Series of Pro Mod and what it's going to bring to the world in 2024.
Yeah. Man, that's cool. So you kind of hit it, but that's kind of what keeps you coming back then.
Yep. Just to see what we can do better on a regular basis, right? Like there are times where I have to relax. I have to like mentally check out for a while to come back at it with some renewed energy and maybe a different perspective or a different way of thinking because I've talked to some people that have opened my eyes or enlightened me to, you were doing this wrong. And that's a hard thing to hear often. And I hear I'm doing it wrong more often than most people should. But again, we wouldn't have companies putting X on the end of their part numbers if it was such a shit show.
No, and you know, to kind of go back to the conversation about X, like, you know, we have, and I think you agree, we personally have a lot of skin in the game of that class. I love that class. I love the racers. I love the competitiveness of it. Right. You know, I even feel like now, you know, with the cars that we help with, you know, it really, I want to race X myself, but because we have so much skin in the game, it almost like fulfills me. Like, it's just awesome because it is one of the most competitive classes in the world. You know, like it is, the field is so tight. You know, there's so many, like you said, there's so many varying combos that, I mean, how from the first set of rules that you wrote, was they probably were on like one page, right?
Yeah, 1 or 2 pages. Yeah, maybe 1.5.
Yeah, now how many pages you got now?
9. And those are all answers to questions, right? Hey, can I do this? No. What's not in the rules? All right, hold on. It is now. Right? Because I didn't think of it or it wasn't an issue or things of that nature there. And people are, you know, they always question you know, about some of the 4-cylinder, 6-cylinder combinations and the diversity that we offer there, the diesel combo and stuff like that. Yeah. If you look at it, we have 6-cylinder, you know, inline stuff with dual power adders. We've got inline Cummins diesels. That guy's broke every part known to man to get where he has. He's earned every step of that. Your car. Yeah. Right? Put him over the top.
Well, and I feel like if we could build a car for that dude and it holds together, I'm...
Right. So watching the success of your car, right, that you built, or watching the success of your children, right? Your children are successful. You gain a lot from that.
It's honestly, you know, there's a paradigm there a bit, right? Like it really is like it's fun. You know, I kind of always look at it like this, like God, when God created us, he set us out for a path, right? Like that only we can live out. It's unique to us. Yep. And when he sees us take those steps, how must he feel?
Right.
And like,
so, but we know, right? Through living through our children or living through our hobbies and our passion, if we don't have kids and seeing success through that, well, no greater times at the track have I ever had than watching my son drive the Malibu. Yeah. And years ago, we run it up at one of our Nitrous X races, and it was in a big wheel stand. And I'm like, man, you are a driving fool. You know, he set it down and got out there, and it was pretty badass to watch him go out and do that. And, you know, we told him, you know, much like the little meme you see with the little kid, you know, hey, I boosted the ramp up, you know, it's a tight ramp, hold on, you know. Basically, that's what Eric Mitchell and I told him. You stab and steer, monkey, and you're going to be fine. And the ramp was pretty steep. And it's a G-body, so, of course, it climbed the ring gear. And he did a fine job driving it, keeping it in the lane. And, you know, we didn't win because, you know, we were getting after it that fast. Yeah. And he did a great job. So, but after that whole weekend, you know, I felt like I was sort of on this high.
Yeah.
You know, watching him have success behind the wheel and everything else like that. And that's why, you know, people are like, man, you let your kid drive your car, and he's not a kid. He's a grown man with a family of his own. And
got a beard.
He's just, he's his own guy, you know? And watching that, right? Like you kind of live vicariously through your kids, you know? And I always tell him, man, I'm like, hey man, when I grow up, I want to be like you, you know? And he's gets a little shy over that stuff, and he's not a shy dude.
Yeah.
And he's like, man, I can't believe, you know, you say that to me. So I watch you with your family, you know, and the little guy, and I'm like, that's what it's all about. That's the most important thing. The racing stuff is awesome, but that's the most important thing.
Oh yeah. And one, I think a lot of the motivation, even with the racing, is like, for my kids, I think I'm sure you feel the same way, is like, a lot of my motivation to keep doing this is I want this to be there when they get older.
Right.
Right. Like if they choose to want to be in this world, you know, I want it to be there for them, and I want to leave it better than when I came.
Absolutely. So
that they can continually take it farther. And, you know, and I think everybody, if people had that mindset, it'd be probably a little bit easier sometimes for some of this stuff.
Right. It would. So oftentimes perspective will skew our view of things, right? Because of learned behaviors or our experiences or the way people have treated us in the past or whatever. And I'm very much the type of guy, I'm going to give back the energy I get.
Yeah.
And if you come with negativity, I'm going to respond in that fashion. But if you come to me with something positive, or you have a question about something, or you're having difficulty with something, I'm going to do my best to try to help.
Yeah.
And move things forward. You know, that's the way I want to be. But if you want to be negative and you want to be angry about things, well, I'm more than capable of going in that direction.
You can
myself.
meet it. Yeah.
And I'm fine with that. And I may exceed it, and you may feel bad after it. But again, I never want to be the person to open that door and be that way right out of the gate. I want to give people the benefit of the doubt, and I want people to understand that it's not always about them. It's never personal when I make a rule change. It's never personal. It's always with the class as a whole and the greater good to make sure that we sustain it.
Yeah, that's great. What do you think the most clever way to push the rules or cheat has been that you've seen?
I've recited this story a couple of times to some people. I was at a no time race that had some rules that needed to be adhered to, as far as stock frame rails must be in the car. And this dude went to the junkyard and hacked out 2 frame rails from a stock car and ratchet strapped them to the door bars inside the car. And he goes, it didn't say stock location. He goes, those are stock frame rails, and they are in the car. I said, man, you're good. I just learned something here today.
I said, my man.
I said, we are going to rewrite the rules just because of your creativity, right? Like, I gave him those props. I gave him the kudos. Man, I didn't think about it like that. I said, we need to do a better job on our end. I wasn't mad at him. I wasn't mad at him.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Right.
No, and that's some of the to pick on the no prep stuff. Like, I've seen guys that are like stock firewall.
Right.
Well, where do you want it?
Right.
You know, like I get same thing. I don't care about the roof of this thing. We'll just ratchet strap to the roof.
Dude, I got a hatchback Mustang. There's a firewall back there that keeps the damn fuel cell and the battery out of the driver's compartment. You didn't say it had to be the factory firewall by the cowl area. That's a firewall that we installed to adhere to NHRA safety guidelines.
Exactly. Well, and that's to your point, to the part of that conversation of like, X started with 1 page. Right. Now we're at 9.
Right.
It's because of stuff like that.
Right. Exactly. Racers are smart, and their creativity is boundless. Right. Like there are certain guys that will sit down and look through those rules top to bottom and try to find every chink in the armor. Right. And then they will try to exploit it. And so when I talk to people that are writing rules for organizations or whatever, I said, you have to find somebody that you know that, how are you going to screw me when I give you this rule set, where are you going to find holes? Where are you going to poke holes? Where are the gray areas? And even though I have a pretty good group of people that I work with on stuff, we always miss stuff.
Yeah.
Stuff always gets through. Man, I didn't think about it like that. That's always that thing, right? It's humbling. It's humbling. Nobody has all the answers.
No. Well, and I think like with no prep right now, a lot of this stuff is it's a 1 day shootout. It happens really fast because we're not having to mess with the racetrack. Like it's bam, 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 bam.
Right.
And people love that. And I'm like, man, I'm just telling you guys, if you want more rules, which I don't think is a bad thing, there needs to be some stuff. But then we got to employ someone like you, right? Like that. When we go to Georgia or wherever we're racing with you, tech takes a day.
Right.
And you have multiple paid people that are there that they can't just be anybody.
Right.
They have to understand what they're looking at. So they're talented people, which cost money.
Absolutely.
And so you have
to be credentialed, right?
Yeah.
Right. You have to be, an HRA or IHRA, silver, bronze, tech. And you have to have some knowledge and some experience. And we're trying to grow people in that area as well, right?
Yeah.
Like there's some new people that we've gotten involved, to become techs, and we've trained them and we've talked with them, and we want them to be able to be consistent in their application of the rules and everything else.
Yeah, that's a huge thing too. Just being consistent in the application of it is huge. But what to kind of wrap up our conversation, get it tied in a bow. What's the future for John Sears? What are you looking forward to?
I'm looking forward to growing our RT LLC, right? I've got some new folks that have come on board, and some folks that are training and things of that nature there, hopefully to help us in the administrative area, and to expand the services that we're able to provide for racetracks. Not only tech, but we want to be able to help maybe market your event prior to you getting there. Or if you're one of our sponsors, man, we're going to do our best to make sure that we put our best foot forward and put you out there in the forefront and get some light shined on your products or your company or the services that you actually can provide. So I very much look at it as providing that almost race operation and services stuff, right? Where we can do the armbands, we can do the waivers, we can do media credentialing, we can do all of that stuff. If you need somebody to help run the lanes, pair cars, all those things right there. I've got a pretty good network of people that we've worked with at a bunch of different venues and a bunch of different events and stuff. And oftentimes they may be local to the track. So we're going to save that track promoter or manager money and travel, right? Yeah. Which is huge, right? We're going to be looking at doing possibly for staffing, going to an Airbnb instead of, 3 separate hotel rooms and the costs that are involved with that. Coordinating flights, right? So we only need one rental car and things of that nature there. So
how to trim down the fat.
Right. We want to trim down the fat, trim down the overhead, and that will allow us to possibly pay our staff more and pay them in line with what they deserve as far as the things that they do and the amount of hours that they spend doing those things. Because there's a lot of pro bono work that goes on prior to an event that people don't know about. Yeah. That we're not getting paid for. We don't get paid to travel on a Monday to be at an event on a Tuesday, and then we travel back home on the following Monday. Those days are a wash. Yeah. Those people aren't getting paid for those days, right? The only thing that you can look at is maybe the per diem that's involved, and knock that off your taxes. Yeah. Right. So those are all those things that we want to take into consideration and do better, and expand the services that we offer as RTRA.
It's cool. What's your fondest memory of X275?
I have to say it was one of the bigger events down at Donald's race in South Georgia. And I think we had 88 or 89 entries down there. I believe that was, all the guys I know from the West Coast came out. And it was just this huge mix of cars. and the energy and the excitement that was there. My son was able to capture that on video. And you know,
88 or 89. I mean, that's a lot of cars.
He did a fabulous job with that video that he shot for that. And again, it's one of those things. It's that promotional stuff that we did back in the early days that we're not doing as much as we used to, because there's such a glut of promotional stuff out there and video and pictures and everything else like that. And it's just like the amount of races, right? Things will get watered down after a while, and you can only cut a pie so many ways until nobody gets a taste, right?
Yeah, that's a great analogy.
Yep.
What do you remember who won that one?
No clue.
You know, no clue. That's interesting.
I know Eric Kenward probably did a huge wheel stand during that one.
Yeah, that's fair. I love that guy. What's interesting is I think to my dad, like, he's won a lot of NHRA races. He's got a bunch of Wallies. He can't really remember the races,
right?
You know, but he remembers the way that some of that stuff, that particular race made him feel, or like, it's the vibe, man. I don't know if you guys know this or not. It's actually not all about winning.
No. So oftentimes, right? Like today, with the instantaneous satisfaction and gratification you get from picking your phone up and things of that nature there. I used to have to wait for like these magazines to come out to find out who won, right? Or
that's interesting.
You know,
I didn't even think about that.
Right. You wouldn't know, you know, unless you knew somebody that went to the event and what they ran.
They mailed you a postcard.
Right, right. Dude, I was here. This is a badass race, man. You wouldn't believe that 57 Chevy that, you know, did a wheel stand for, you know, an 8th mile, set him down and went out the back and went 830. Holy shit, you know, that's a street car, you know, that kind of stuff, right? So you would have to wait. And now we don't have to wait. And what I think that has done is that has sort of dulled our appreciation for things. In hindsight, you would almost like to go back, right? So you can feel that appreciation once again for what we've got, because we did our own thing, you know, that whole mid 90s, you know, 2000s fastest streetcar shootout stuff, all those deals that laid the foundation for what we do now. And we've had our own groundswell in the radio world, and that took over for a bunch of years, right? I don't think anybody knew at the time how important that genre of racing was and what it meant to drag racing as a whole and what effect it had. I mean, hell, NHRA contacted us and we did a heads up X275 deal versus Northeast X275.
That was a cool deal.
Right?
Yeah, that was a cool deal.
And the guys raced for Wally up there, and Dean Marinis won the Wally, right? So you look at, wow. Right? That's
a real Wally too.
Right. That's legit stuff right there.
Yeah.
So to me, being able to look at those moments, you know, and taking a deep breath and appreciate them for what they are when they're happening doesn't happen quite as much as I think it should, because there's a lot of cool stuff going on. You guys are putting out cool parts. I remember just struggling with stupid bracketry on some of our engines to try to get shorter belts on there so we're not chucking the alternator belt off the thing at 7,500 RPM or whatever. Well, all that stuff now is all available.
It's easy to get.
It is so easy to get. And I think a lot of guys don't understand the struggle that it used to be
to do that,
do that kind of stuff, right? Like, think about a set of Southside machine bars that used to be for A bodies and G bodies and Mustangs, right? Now look at what you guys offer. Torque boxes, you know, lower control arm mounting plates, adjustable control arms, you know, all that stuff, anti-roll bar. Man, we had airbags.
Yeah.
We had airbags, right? So looking at that and thinking back and remembering the struggle makes me appreciate what we have more now than ever before. One, because I'm probably a little older and I'm reflecting a little more. But every time I go into my trailer and I look at the Malibu, and I do that quite often because I promise it one day that we'll be back out on the track with it. I'm just amazed at how far things have come and that car is dated now.
Yeah.
Right? That car's dated.
But
it's exactly what I wanted at the time.
It was a top of the line piece,
right.
you know? And it's crazy. I read something somewhere that one of the things that Apple does really well is like, we think that we have the latest and greatest product in our pocket. Right. We actually don't. You know, they already have, I don't know how far it is, but they've already have way more out there for us. Right. It's already waiting. And I think with racing, we give the latest and greatest right now.
Right now.
We don't hold anything back because we want the competitive edge.
Right.
So you just always see this, like, this is better, this is better, this is better, this is better. And it's really, it's great to sit back and look and be like, holy crap, look how far we came in such a short time period, which makes your job of teching race cars ridiculously hard because you have an army of people that is constantly and methodically thinking about how they're going to fool you.
Right. And how they're going to change your product. And you want it to be for the better, but it may not be for the better.
Yeah.
Right. And or easier to manipulate or what have you. Like the whole turbocharged stuff. Like I've got a seminar that I should be at right now for turbocharged, but I told some of my guys, hey, get up to the seminar and whatnot. It's important. It's about rule writing. It's about turbochargers and the manipulation and the safety and everything else like that. We did one yesterday for SFI in regards to 61.1 turbocharger stuff.
Yeah.
Right. So PRI is becoming sort of that area where we can get our techs to these different seminars and get updated on different information and different things like that. Yeah. That doesn't preclude us from trying to keep an eye on what you're selling or what the next guy is selling. We have to be diligent in that, right? And we're not always as diligent as we need to be because life is what it is, right? I got to cut the grass at some point.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, for years you had another job.
Truck, right? I had a whole other job. So at some point, there's got to be some give and take in there, and there's got to be some leniency on the part of people when they're calling you out on stuff to go, yeah, maybe that guy took his wife or girlfriend to dinner the other night. And that's why he wasn't able to text me back or whatever, because, I need to be available at 3:30 a.m. Sunday night going into Monday morning for your tech question about what bolt you can use in your rear control arm.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Well, and I think that, I like to look at F1.
Right.
Because they're like, it's just a ridiculous thing.
Yep.
And like, look at what it takes to do that.
Oh, yeah.
And if you look at that, it's like, man, we're barefoot hillbillies.
Yep. Oh, 100%.
And that's kind of that's the magic though, right?
Right. This is every man.
Exactly. And when you have every man, we have to be every man together.
Yep. From
tech to products to all of it.
Otherwise, we're down like 4 flat tires.
Exactly. And we're on the cinder blocks. It's man, us as drag racers, me as a competitor, we're lucky to have you.
I don't know about that.
No, we are lucky to have you. And if you look at racing like a mountaintop, you've really helped get us closer to the top. You really you carried and you're carrying your baton really well. And whenever you choose to set that baton down, I don't know if anybody else will be able to pick it up.
Probably not anybody that dumb out there.
But you've really carried your baton super far, super well.
Appreciate that.
I don't know anybody that could do your job better. So
there are several out there that I would like to hand it off to, but they'd have to have true ownership of it.
Yeah.
Right? Like they would have to own it. And there would have to be some skin in the game. There have to be some sort of monetary
risk
number, risk to reward ratio for them, right? And I often look at it as I'll hand you the whole thing over, and you have to do it for a minimum of 3 years. You have to own it, and I will show you numbers of what I've spent out of my own pocket and put into what we do, right? And at the end of that 3 years, you let me know if you want to keep going or not.
Yeah, you want to jump
and
off
if you don't want to keep
not.
going, you can hand me a $10,000 check.
Yeah. I mean, it's a good bargain.
Yep. And then I'll hit you with the I told you so.
It's funny. Well, man, I know you are incredibly busy, and we really appreciate you taking the time to sit down with us. I hope you guys enjoyed this.
Yeah, this is really good.
As much as I have. I honestly, I want to have you on, a few more times. Just, there's so many rabbit holes we could go down.
Sure.
This one, I just wanted people to meet you.
Yep.
If they didn't know who you are, an incredible human being.
No,
so
thank you.
But yeah, we appreciate you guys watching. If you have a question for John or just want to thank him, like, please, like, leave a comment thanking him, because you don't have to do this, and you've done it for a long time.
Right. I try to tell people all the time, I do this because I want to, not because I have to.
Yeah. So
thank you.
We appreciate you, man.
All right, brother.